The complicated life of Ryder begins in the General County Hospital, where he would be born as Lance Wilson, and was likely born around 1964 since he is based off the late and great Eazy-E. And although Rockstar never officially came out and said, "Hey, this is Ryder's birthday," it can be assumed because this would make them 30 years old during 1992. But what we do know for sure is that Lance Wilson was raised in one of the toughest neighborhoods in Los Santos, a very small cul-de-sac in the heart of Ganton called Grove Street. Grove Street would be the base of operations for the Grove Street families. And you better believe that Lance Wilson wasted no time in joining the family gang, where he would quickly earn rank and get the name Ryder. Lance Wilson will get the name Ryder due to his fearless attitude. And not only that, but he would be quick to press on anything that isn't families. This would just show that Ryder was fearless and had a ride or die mentality. But while some seen this as his greatest trait, it was clear that this was his biggest flaw. Because when it came to his education, he completely crashed out. Ryder was Hawaiian. One time, Lance Wilson would beat a teacher's ass just for wearing the color purple. And this was a non-affiliate, so imagine what he did to the people that were affiliated with the Ballas. And this kind of behavior set him off for a very, very rough life. Because by the age of 10, he had already started selling drugs for the GSF. But it wouldn't be completely his fault, because he was pushed in this environment by his parents who weren't there for him. And this would drive him to find a sense of family somewhere else. Kung Fu. Not really, I'm talking about the Grove.
Grove Street.
Grove Street is where he would spend most of his days with the Johnson family. And when he wasn't with the Johnson family, he was in the Ganton courts kicking it with Big Smoke. Now early on, Ryder and the Johnson family were super close and would go on missions putting in work on the Kilo Trade Ballas, which is supported by this.
Hey, don't we got beef around here? We've been getting into it with these fools.
It can be assumed he's talking about the Willowfield branch. But in the year 1987, Ryder would feel some deep pain because his homie Little Brian would be gunned down by the Ballas at the age of 10 years old. But the attacks on the Grove Street families wouldn't stop there, because over the next 5 years, the Ballas would carry out attacks on the Grove Street families, losing 4 key members of the Grove Street families within this 5-year span: Little Brian, Tony, Big Devil, and Little Devil. And on top of that, they would have to face the fall of the Grove Street family, because a lot of members during 1992 would start to betray the family gang. And by then, only a couple members would be loyal to the gang and would be down to put down the crack pipe so they could bang on the ball sack fools, including the sets under the family umbrella, such as Temple Drive and Seville Boulevard, which would be in a very violent and bloody war between the two gangs. Members like Little Weasel, Big Bear, and B-Dub would start to click up with the Kilo Trade Ballas so they could start pushing dope across Los Santos, because in the early 90s, you would have to betray the green to make the green, because the green didn't want to push the white, but the white wanted to push the green. Now, this is where the character gets a little messy and the fans can't decide if he was ever meant to be a traitor or not. So let's go ahead and clear it up just to get it out the way. Ryder's voice actor is MC8, which is a rapper from Compton and was contacted by Rockstar through DJ Pooh so Rockstar could use his music in the game. But instead of just using his music, they would decide to use the rapper as a voice actor, because during this time they was using real gang members to make the game sound more authentic, which it did. But MC8 will come out and say this just to knock down the rumors.
When they were working on whatever one I'm in, they called me up, Rockstar, and said they wanted to see if I would be interested in doing a voiceover for a character. And you know, having a little experience with the movie and all that with Menace, I already knew what a voiceover was. They wanted me to come read some lines for a character. And just like going to a recording studio, I went into a booth. They gave me a script like they did for the movie, and basically they would play me the scenes of the video game. And so then I had to match up, like when the dude was walking, I would have to, okay, say this line now while he's walking, or if he was driving or whatever. So that's how we basically did it. They would play me the scene, and then I would watch it, and then they would rewind it, and then I would start filling in the motherfucking words right then. And that's how I was able to do Grand Theft Auto and be the character Ryder in Grand Theft Auto.
And now this means that Ryder was always meant to betray the families, because the introduction takes place before the game, and MCA didn't record any other lines but the ones given by Rockstar. Now again, I will always agree that Ryder's character is messy as hell. Like, Rockstar should have done way better, but I kind of feel like this was done on purpose, and I'm gonna tell you why. PCP. Now it's mentioned in the game by Ryder over and over and over again. Like, this dude is a fiend, and I do think it was intentionally put there to show that Ryder had flaws of his own. Like, if you think about it, Big Smoke, he's obese. Sweet, he's a terrible leader. CJ, he runs away from his problems. And Ryder, PCP. Dude is a fiend. So over this 5-year span, Ryder would spend his time smoking PCP, which is known to make you very violent and unpredictable, and possibly even forgetful, which would make things like him mentioning the green saber make sense. Him capping them baller ass fools makes sense. Him beating up local dope dealers makes sense. These are all effects of PCP, so it makes sense. Plus again, in the introduction, he knows damn well that he's about to betray the family.
The way I see it, man, I need to be in charge of my destiny, homie.
This way you will be, homie. This is all about destiny. You know I got your back, right, homie?
Cool. How my shit look, fool?
But as you just seen, Ryder would be down to turn Los Santos into a crack house, which indeed made him lots of money, but he would have to keep it on the low. So he would have to convince people like Sweet, who was highly against the drug trade, that he was indeed a loyal member. But during the 5-year span that crippled the families, Ryder would begin smoking PCP, which would turn him into an irrational, unpredictable gangster. But it would soon take a toll on Ryder, because Ryder would start to forget simple things, would soon become selfish, only taking on missions that benefit himself. But he wouldn't be the only one to blame, because Big Smoke is the key player of this operation. You see, Big Smoke was living in the Ganton courts when he was approached by Tenpenny. Officer Tenpenny will give him 2 options. Option A, you betray your friend and make a lot of money. Or option B, we will kill you, Sweet, and Ryder. Now I'm not gonna say that Big Smoke didn't try to persuade Sweet and go into the drug trade, but once he seen that Sweet wasn't feeling it, he would go over to Ryder and convince him to get into the drug trade. And while at first it did seem like he was a little hesitant on the whole thing, it didn't take much convincing for him to get down on the whole operation. And we already know that Ryder had a large network due to him slinging weed and PCP on the side. So Ryder was definitely racking in racks. Oh, he was. Because CJ's return literally messed up everything for Big Smoke and Ryder. CJ's return was supposed to be quick and easy, showing up to attend his mother's funeral and then would leave and go back home to Liberty City. Here is where the fate of Los Santos would be rewritten, because the Ballas would pull up and start shooting at the Grove Street gang, thus sending them running, where they would jump on bikes and race back to Grove Street, hoping not to get hit by a stray bullet. So between the guilt trip that Sweet put on CJ, the failed assassination attempt, and learning the current state of the Grove Street families, this would set him on his own mission, pledging that he would take down the entire baller gang and would restore the family gang. Later, CJ went to see Ryder, where he would catch up with the homie. Ryder would tell CJ about the beef he had with the local pizza place, because every time he went to Idlewood, he would spray paint the word Grove Street on the well-stacked Pizza Co.'s wall, which happened to be in the hood of the Ballers. So crossing out the hood was a no-no. So Ryder would get CJ to join him, where he would attempt to rob the well-stacked Pizza Co., which didn't work out well, because the manager sent the 2 fleeing back to their home in Grove Street. But after this failed mission, CJ will walk in on the gang discussing their politics on the drug trade. This is where CJ and Ryder would be sent to beat up local drug dealers in the area. But knowing they couldn't do it alone, they would attempt to phone a friend. But man, did they get a rude awakening, because Big Bear was no longer an OG. He had fallen from his past status and became the B-Dub. But even with this bump in the road, the two would head over to Grove Street alone, where they would confront a local drug dealer selling to one of the homies, before heading over to Idlewood and breaking into an apartment, viciously attacking the Ballas and prostitutes around. This was really big, because the Front Yard Ballas are the biggest baller gang in the city, so not only did it give them a bad rep, but it would affect their overall money flow. And without money coming in, you can't really go to war. So this gave the Grove Street families a huge advantage. But while the Front Yard Ballas couldn't play ball, the Kilo Trade Ballas would step to the plate. They would start planning their revenge and would start to drive around their neighborhood until they saw the Grove Street families at a fast food chain, in which they would cock their gun back and would begin racing the families back to Grove Street. If they managed to get back to the hood, they was planning to kill a couple Grove Street members. And even though this didn't happen, this was a huge eye-opener for the gang, because they knew if they wanted to combat the Ballas, they would need guns, and Emmett's guns really wasn't doing it. So Ryder and LB would come up with a master plan. They would rob the military bases around Los Santos, and CJ and Ryder would even break into a home of a military vet while he was asleep, showing just how desperate they were to get the ammos and guns they needed. And trust me, everyone in Los Santos knew this, because Officer Tenpenny would even tell them about a train that was arriving in Los Santos filled with ammunition. But the problem was that he told every gang in the city, so by the time they arrived to get the ammo, they were met with gunfire from the Ballas and the Los Vagos. And due to CJ's skill, they would get away with the freight, finally being one up on the rival gangs in Los Santos. This is where the Grove Street families would start to peak in 1992, because they would have rappers emerge on the rap scene, and the family gang would start to establish themselves back under the Grove Street families. But getting every set together wasn't easy at all, because during the meeting at the Jefferson Motel, they would be met by the SWAT team and LSPD, storming the motel and killing and locking up multiple members of the family gang. But the main four managed to get away, becoming public enemy number 1 to the LSPD. Things were hot in Los Santos, and the families knew that they needed to cool down, so they would hide out for some time. And while it's never said or shown on screen, it can be assumed that Ryder and Smoke was trying to get rid of any evidence that linked them back to the crimes with Tenpenny. But while they were trying to duck the LSPD, they would be spotted by the Los Aztecas, in which Caesar would show CJ exactly what's been going on the whole time, blowing the lid off Tenpenny's whole operation and causing CJ to go down a rabbit hole that would spark his own investigation. During this whole time, Ryder had no clue that CJ knew, so he was moving around San Andreas as if he couldn't be touched, accompanied by the same Ballas that he once hated with all his heart. But this moving around freely would eventually catch up to him, because during the meeting at Pier 69, he would be ambushed by the Triads and his former friend CJ, causing the bloodiest shootout that San Fierro has ever seen, with the San Fierro Reefa's leader, Tebow Mendez, being shot and killed during the shootout. Ryder would attempt to flee the scene by jumping into the ocean, in which he would be shot and killed and left to drown within its waves. Ryder was an OG that would be missed by many, and was a fan favorite that many believe that he deserved to be portrayed in a different light. Though people like myself like the way it turned out, one thing's for sure, Lance Ryder Wilson will be missed. May you grow in peace. But I want to thank you all for watching LS Central, where I cover gangs, lore, and more. Now we'll be remaking a lot of my older videos just to get the audio better and tell the story possibly better, but I will be doing several different series here on out. Babe, this is your boy LS Central. Check in.